Hey, we are on with Gary Comer, the founder of Soul Whisperer Ministries, and he's got some exciting news today. He's going to be having a new book, uh, Game of Pulpits. And one of the things about that name is it invokes all of these things because it relates to a cultural, in a sense, icon right now. Jesus did the same thing in a sense with parables and stories, uh, and they were relatives of the culture that they were in today, that in his day. And what you've done is you've taken a concept of a book that's relatable to a cultural thing that we can relate to today, right?
Mhm.
And so, being that the title of your new book is Game of Pulpits, are you concerned about what people might misconceive or misinterpret about what you wrote and come to their own conclusions, maybe without even exploring your new book? How would you address those concerns?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was one of the concerns right from the beginning with Game of Pulpits. I pitched it out to my editor friend, Dawn. Dawn, hey, you know what? I've had this idea pop in my mind about writing, kind of a leadership book. And wanted to do a little bit of a jump off from kind of what's out there with Game of Thrones, and to title it Game of Pulpits. And he initially, well, oh wow, well, Game of Thrones is that's passe, that's kind of in the background. I mean, people aren't. And I said, well, the book isn't. I'm not really building the book all about that. The book Game of Pulpits isn't about the entire story of Game of Thrones. It's a jumping point, and I saw some parallels to kind of what's happening along the leadership front today, especially because we are actually asking big questions today. I mean, there's been some times in the past where that wasn't happening, where everybody kind of thought, wow, the church is doing so great and look at it, we're all growing. And, I mean, the what happened, in the attractional shift is what I call it with Bill Hybels, 1975, and following with Rick Warren, 1980, and Saddleback. Willow Creek and Saddleback, I mean, what happened there running up to the millennium was a lot of growth. Churches across the board grew, but then we hit it into the millennium time, and suddenly the skids come on, and suddenly culture is changing and shifting, and we're suddenly in a further post-Christian environment, and now we've nuns who are increasing and rising, and so we've got this secularization that's taken place, and with it we have over 2 decades of decline across most of the denominations. We do have some who are doing better than others, but overall we've been in a place of decline, and so with all the shifts and all the changes that have happened in the culture, we're kind of at a place where we are asking, the question, what should the church be, and where should we go? And so these are rivaling voices. I would not say that they are competing against each other as if, we're not on the same team. They're just rivaling voices who really are saying, "Hey, here's the answer. Okay, here's the answer for what the church needs to be." And so what I did, just kind of a little bit like that epic fantasy story. What I try to do is capture, those voices, and I mean, when you jump into the book, you got the redesigners, you've got the Pentecostal voice. Okay. We've got the evangelicals, and what they're the championing of cultural change that's taking place within that, some of the political side of it. I identified Christian capitalists, that there's many people who are out there doing works on Christian platforms and in different ways who are bringing forth resources, best kingdom resources, for people. And then you've got the mega churches, the mega flagshippers, I call them, the spiritual renewalists, okay, spiritual formation people, as well as your Bible teaching didactics, those who really believe that, hey, we need to learn our Bibles, we really get a little more Bible study, we get more and we get some more sermons, and that's going to be the answer, right? And then there's nuclear voices. And so what do I mean in nuclear? These are voices championing radical restructuring of the church. I happen to be one of them, and they're very, very interesting to look into. But even just back to the redesigners, those who are championing innovative change in the church, so we have these voices, and they're vying, you see. And so what I wanted to do with the book was to kind of open up conversations, really with leaders about these voices. The thing that leaders will do is they will see themselves. They will see themselves in this, and they will see themselves in multiple spots. And they will also glean from what other kingdom voices are championing. There's a learning side to every one of these chapters for leaders. I'm not separating them out in a way that, I don't want to have everybody read every chapter. I actually think there's something valuable for every leader, regardless of your particular voice and your particular convictions and strengths. And so anyways, yes, can people misinterpret this? Yes. And even game, right? Game, it sounds so trivial, but this book is anything but trivial. Yeah, this book is the epic story of the kingdom of God that is unfolding right now for the expansion of the gospel. And that is hugely significant. The book is based on analysis. So, I'm asking you to enter in with me into deep thought related to what is happening, how we're leading. And one of the things I really loved about the book is the fact that I felt like I was able, kind of with the setup of it, I was able to do some different things with this from a leadership perspective. So.
So it gave you a bigger playground in a sense, right?
Yeah, it enabled me one of the things on making predictions is one of the early setup chapters that is there. It's short, but it's important because I wanted to explain what I'm doing because who will win and why, there's a predictive element to this book. So where did I get that? I actually get that from Revelation 1. I get that from the assignment that the Apostle John is given to do something with seven churches, okay? To in a way to affirm and esteem those churches for the good things that are happening, but also to critique. But I see this in you, and so Game of Pulpits has that kind of layering. It esteems the voice, it critiques the voice with analysis, and it also predicts what will happen within the leadership picture. Do we have the wisdom, the will, and the wherewithal? You see, the ability, the capacity to act and to respond in the best way. And so sometimes we may have the vision, vision might be there, but we're struggling along the implementational line to actually get the needle to move here with our church bodies or our mission arms. And so you can kind of see how there's some layering, and the setup enabled me to do that. And so I believe that the book's very valuable from that perspective because you're having to look at the vision side, but you're also kind of looking at, okay, what does my leadership look like, or what does it need to be, to actually be effective here and fruitful. And the predictive element, the future element, where we're going, God, that also is just a whole nother thing to think about. Sometimes we're so in our lane that we don't kind of get out to realize, wow, if we stay here, if we stay this thing, how is that going to help us develop what the future church really needs to be? Are we adapting? Are we moving? Are we as a leaders doing the things that we need to do so we can get to where we really need to go in development? And there's a lot of need. There's a lot of need in the church today.
Well, we're going to have to talk about what's coming up and a future episodes. So hold that thought.